Conservatives who are for the banning of contraceptives like IUDs and birth control and condoms. Why? The conservatives that are for banning these things are also religious nuts. First and foremost, it's not the conservative part making this decision, it's the uber bonkers born-again Christian part of them. And it stinks that people see every conservative as this. Most conservatives are not for banning birth control, or even making it hard to get. We want it just as much as anyone else. I personally don't know anyone who wants to ban birth control. I personally think it should be free. And I'm pretty damn conservative, just not a born-again Christian pain in the ass. In seeing a lot of comments that answer OP's question by stating that Christians, Catholics, Muslims, etc. want to ban these contraceptives because insert angry reasoning here. To clarify, being conservative is not the same as being religious. That being said, religious people, especially Christians such as myself, tend to lean more conservatively. I just think that it is important to read the question and formulate an answer based on what is actually asked instead of replacing the word conservative with anyone who follows an Abrahamic faith. Because they are a threat to civilization in the United States. They have hostile to the environment. They are against healthcare and education for all, and they are responsible for the death of many Americans with their lies for dumb political reasons about COVID. Sorry, not a conservative, but I can play devil's advocate. There's a belief in some applications of certain religions that sex is to be sacred, and solely for the purpose of reproduction. There's also some that don't feel like women should be allowed to make decisions about their own bodies, like whether or not they're able to get pregnant. Again, I do not believe either of these things, just highlighting what a couple common reasonings are. I don't know a single Republican voter who wants to ban birth control. There's some bullshit going on in Congress, but that's not the average voter. I'm pretty conservative myself, and if you were to look in my nightstand, you'd find several Plan Bs and 3 boxes of condoms. Every single man I know has similar setups in their homes. I just read a poll showing 93% of Republican votes support birth control. So, question directed to the conservatives for an answer. Redditors answers their, them, they, their, those, they, them, etc. It's the same in this subreddit with any question that asks for a conservative Republican point of view. Op's question might just as well have been people who hate conservatives. Let forth your viewpoints. As a former conservative, the only reason I can think of is that they see such things as resulting in degeneracy as people engage in massive amounts of relatively consequence-free sex. They'd rather have people marry and have only one partner for life, and keep things like STDs and pregnancies down through not having sex or something. But that's the only logic I can think of. They want women back in their place. If women cannot control their fertility, they can't work and achieve any more than the man they're coupled with. Dependent on men, they can't be expected to achieve academically or rise within the corporate ranks. Some men find it difficult to be with women in the workplace expected to treat them equally, even in the 21st century. If I am not wrong, conservatives in the US look up to the Bible to get answers. If Bible says contraception is bad, then they will push for the contraceptives ban. Ever think this is wrong and stupid at all levels because it won't deter most people from having sex, just that people will be risking it. Men for STDs and women for both STDs and unwanted pregnancies. If you think a majority, or even a sizable amount of conservatives are for the banning of contraceptives like condoms, you're an idiot. Anti-contraception is typically a Catholic position, as well as a few other religions. But even amongst Catholics, most use contraceptives. This is a strawman question and a pointless one to ask on this site. Thing is that the religious wing of the conservatives back around the 1950s or so became convinced that white people would be minorities eventually as black and brown people had babies at higher rates. That's why they are against contraception and abortion. They just use the God angle as the smoke screen. I love how every time I see a thread asking for a conservative opinion, the top answers are always lefties telling everyone else how conservatives think. The best part being that most of the time they're miles off what the answer is. Why bother answering if you're not the demographic that's been asked? They want to keep us poor. People are going to have sex, and the consequence is mouths we can't feed. So, we have to work at jobs we hate that pay too little, because if we don't, we'll be buried. And hey, new workers to fuel the endless feed of money into the upper 0.01. You are asking a site where 99% of people lean liberal to far left. Of that remaining one who identify as conservative, 99 don't want to ban what you are saying. Of that remaining fraction of a fraction, the answer is simple. They are hardcore Catholics. I know not a single conservative in my 53 years actually supports banning contraceptives. It's a boogeyman like they'll end democracy. It's the equivalent of saying Democrats want to make America communist because they advocate for free health care. I'm conservative and Christian, and I am 100 for birth control that prevents the sperm from fertilizing an egg. I'm 100 against birth control that prevents the implantation of a fertilized egg, or that otherwise destroys the human being formed therein. One of the GOP reps said it not too long ago in a slip of the quiet part out loud. The domestic supply of infants and later, infantry. They need a large, poor and educated population that their only easy way out is the military. Because they want women trapped, like they were before the sexual revolution. Keep them barefoot and pregnant. Life was much better in the 50s. Don't you see? When women were in the kitchen and black folks at the back of the bus. Black conservative here. And I have never met a conservative that wants to ban contraceptives. The only people I've ever heard that from are Planned Parenthood supporters on why Planned Parenthood needs government funding. Not a conservative, but my mother was. The reason given was that the Bible has God commanding humankind to be fruitful and multiply. God decides who can have children and how many. Obey God and you will go to heaven. Religion has posed in their minds to believe that sex is dirty and unnatural. The idea of a woman enjoying sex infuriates them. Also, the poverty to prison pipeline is far too profitable to let it fall apart. They want to control women and make them dependent on men. Women would not be able to work and would be financially dependent on men. They would have to go back to taking whatever a man wants to dish out. I'm as conservative as they come, somewhere between Reagan and Hitler, much closer to Reagan, and I don't know of any conservatives who are against IUDs, condoms, birth control, etc. Blame someone else. There is much religious backup for banning of contraception, but at present it is not a strong political move to go that far. That may change. Welcome to the malleable morals of the modern politician. Because their fucking preachers preach against them, the preachers want and need to have lots of little kids to brainwash and indoctrinate, so they'll bring their money and kids when they grow up. My mum is very religious and conservative. She's fine with birth control and condoms as long as you're married. But she doesn't understand IUDs at all and is convinced it causes abortions. I'm a conservative. I've never heard anyone talking about this. Is this common? I'm in favor of having them, not banning them. I had no idea this was even a conversation. I don't know anyone conservative, moderate, or liberal who wants to ban these things. Is this another one of those questions designed to make people angry and further divide us? You're confusing religion and politics. Just because you're labeled as conservative, it doesn't mean you're against it. I'm conservative and all for it. Have fun and be reasonable. I know lots of conservatives and literally none of them are against birth control. Even the Catholic ones. Where are you hearing that all of these conservatives are against those? I'm not, but it's mostly due to party loyalty with the excuse that life begins at conception and that fetuses are future babies and thus should have the same rights as babies. Conservative here. It's honestly counterproductive to my values. I'm fiscally conservative. I don't want to pay for childcare or welfare, so I encourage free contraception. They encourage premarital sex, which has a wide range of negative consequences. Banning premarital sex is difficult, So banning contraceptives is a good compromise for now. In my experience, most conservatives won't actually acknowledge that the terrible politicians they vote for plan to do those things. Fox News certainly doesn't cover it, because sex is sin and sin should be punished. To people who don't want anyone else to have any fun, sex is only for making babies and most if not for enjoyment. You're asking on a site that is made up of mostly very left-leaning people. You can ask this question on a different site with a more conservative demographic law. I think this is more of a trad Catholic thing than a conservative thing. Most conservatives I know, even religious ones, are fine with birth control. I consider myself pro-life, and I didn't even know there were people out there who were against birth control and condoms. That's just insane. I have a conservative friend who doesn't like contraceptives because that's preventing God's will. Sex is for having kids, not for pleasure. I don't think it's a conservative thing as much as it is a religious thing. I know a lot of conservatives, and none of them think this way. I'm conservative as well as most of my family. None of us have a problem with contraceptives that prevent sperm from fertilizing an egg. I love how many people know a conservative or have a conservative cousin they've met only once or something weird. Funny how that works. What a stupid question. You can get the answer by simply reading the myriad of stuff they've written about it. FFS, it's right there. They want more white American babies because they are terrified that they might be the minority one day. And they hate women. As a conservative-leaning individual, I'm by no means opposed to any of those, as they should eliminate the need for abortion. I mean, does anyone really support this? Like any significant part of the population. This seems pretty out there. They need a poor and uneducated workforce. Ensuring that there is a surplus of children ensures that. In conservative, and I think those folks are loons. They are extremists on each side, far left and far right.